Hey, Paul.
Hey Greg, how are you?
Doing all right.
Who we got today?
We have another CAD confined.
Oh,
Yeah. So I
oh,
first
for those listening at home, can you tell us what CADCA means?
CADCA is the coalition ATCA. I can't remember, but it is our big coalition summit where we all get together and learn new preventative measures and what the new trends and resources and programs are out there. But I came across this organization, and once I talked to them, I was like, I gotta get with Polly and try and get them on the podcast. So today we have Leah Shepard. She is the executive director of Victoria's Voice. So she's going to tell us Victoria's story and how this resource can definitely benefit and help a lot of parents
All right.
and youth.
And youth. Okay.
All right. So without further ado, today joining us on Totally Preventable, we have Leah Shepard, the executive director of Victoria's Voice. Leah, how are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful today. Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here.
Our pleasure. Our pleasure. And to start off, as we normally do, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got to where you are today?
Sure. I met the Siegel family through some mutual friends a few years ago, and they had launched the Victoria's Voice Foundation and were looking for some more organizational support, governance, financial management, and was really compelled by the mission. And after several meetings with them and their executive leadership, decided to join the organization, and have been here for about 2.5 years now.
All right.
So, Victoria's Voice was founded on a tragic loss, and a personal story. Could you give us the details behind the organization?
Sure. David and Jackie Siegel are well known in Orlando, Florida. David Siegel is a developer and timeshare resort owner and operator, CEO and founder of Westgate Resorts, and Westgate Resorts operates 27 resorts nationwide. And has he and Jackie had kids together. Victoria was the oldest one, who he actually adopted after they got married. And Victoria died of an accidental drug overdose at the age of 18. And there's no shortage of nonprofits that have been started with parents who've lost a child, whether it's through drug overdose, accidental drowning, car wreck. So their initial intentions after Victoria died weren't to start a foundation. What David was doing as a businessman and entrepreneur was trying to get answers. First and foremost, they say that the three reasons that their daughter died were that A, they missed the signs as parents. They had no idea how bad the mental health and the intersection between her mental health issues and substance use were. Two, that Victoria didn't have the coping skills that teens need to deal with the stress and anxiety of what they go through in today's world. And third, the first responders didn't have Narcan, naloxone. She died in 2016, almost 10 years ago, and a lot has happened in the awareness and the caring of naloxone, but at the time, on June 6, 2016, the first responders didn't have it. And she had a pulse when the first responders arrived. And so that they believe that had the first responders had Narcan, that their daughter would still be alive today. So the foundation sits on the pillars of educating parents about warning signs, about trying to educate kids about other ways to deal with stress and anxiety that aren't drug and substance use, and then ensuring that everyone, not just first responders, but every American walking around has naloxone in their first aid kit or in their purse, their backpack, in their car.
Wow. It seems like now it just seems like what do you mean they didn't have Narcan? But
Right, right.
years ago.
It just wasn't. And naloxone was approved by the FDA in 1971. It's been around for over 50 years. If you've ever had surgery, if you've ever been in an operating room, the anesthesiologist has naloxone. It just was never something known of or thought of or needed for mainstream America because until the opioid addiction and opioid overdoses.
I also think in Rhode Island we're doing a really good job getting naloxone out,
Mhm.
and I think every state is. But then when I talk to people from other states, it's not always the case, you know.
There's still so much stigma associated with substance use that really needs to go away.
Mhm.
People think not my child, not my spouse, not in my family. And
Mhm.
it is your child, it is your spouse, it is in your family. And, if you carry a fire extinguisher thinking I'm never going to have a fire, you still have a fire extinguisher in your house. Let's hope you never have a fire. Let's hope nobody you love ever overdoses, but the chances are they might. So just have that naloxone just in case. That's all it is.
Mhm.
That's a great analogy.
It
Like the
is.
fire extinguisher
Yeah.
analogy. Now, many parents fear that substance use could impact their own children, but don't always know where to start when it comes to prevention. So what does Victoria's Voice offer to help parents have those tough but necessary conversations?
We have a program called Vital Signs. And again, it's based on the premise of the signs that David and Jackie missed. And they can just go to our website at victoriasvoice.org and look for programs Vital Signs. Everything we offer is for free. But Vital Signs is a series of 7 different modules that parents can do at their own time. You can do it on your phone, you can do it on your laptop, on your computer. And they're bite-sized pieces of video content that address the signs that you may not know as it relates to vaping, bullying, smoking, marijuana, any other sort of substance use, suicide, which is a tough subject. That's the one module that our parents review the least, and I understand why. But it really gives them the warning signs that they may not know that exist, that are as simple as your kids change in mood, they're changing weight, they're changing grades. You think, oh, maybe it's just a tough semester, their grades dropped. Why are their grades dropping? What are your children doing? Have changes happened in their peer group? Are they hanging out with different kids than they used to that might be influencing them? Or have they stopped socializing with their friends? Have they abandoned their after school activities? Those are some of the signs that David and Jackie missed and parents may not even think of. And that Vital Signs toolkit also has great conversation starters. I know it's hard to talk to your kids about the birds and the bees, about a lot of things, but what if you don't have that conversation? And that one conversation could have opened your mind and opened your eyes to what's going on in your kid's life.
Right. Wow.
Absolutely. What are some key programs that Victoria's Voice has to help prevent use with families?
In addition to Vital Signs, we have a program called Save Our Kids. We have a national network of speakers that speak to middle school and high school kids nationwide. And again, all of this is for free to talk to kids about other things that they can do, again, to deal with the peer pressure, anxiety, any issues that kids are dealing with that might cause them to turn to drugs, and really, especially marijuana and vaping, which are gateway drugs. Marijuana has become so mainstream in this country because of medical marijuana. This is not the pot that people in our generation smoked in high school. It is different, it is stronger, it is highly addictive, and it is dangerous. And when kids' brains are not fully developed, the permanent damage that they are doing to themselves can't be reversed. And we have these speakers who really try to scare these kids straight. Many of them are bereaved parents who've buried a child to a drug overdose. And you talk about some of the most compelling and moving stories, and to see these kids move to tears thinking, I'm never going to do that to my kid. We know that it has a profound impact. We do before and after surveys, and we see the attitudes of these kids change, and we know it's working.
I'm just thinking about what those stories would be like, a parent who has just lost a child that did that speech. Wow. Now you also have resources like Victoria's Voice Diary and the Parent Support Network. How do these tools help bridge the gap between prevention and action?
Yeah, the diary is something that I'm really proud of David and Jackie Siegel for publishing. After their daughter died, they found her diary in her nightstand, and the diary consists of some introductory content, but it's the actual pages of this young girl's diary over a course of a 4-year period. And you see the downward spiral of her mental health and the intersection of when she started using drugs to cope with some of her mental health issues. And it is a cautionary tale to any parent who thinks it can't happen to them. And it really is a warning sign for kids to maybe recognize themselves in this diary and try to stop what they're doing and think, I don't want to end up like Victoria. And then in the back of the diary, we have sourced data and resources through organizations of the CDC, through NIDA, the National Institute of Drug Abuse, through SAMHSA. I know those are a lot of acronyms, but we have data for parents and resources for parents to go to and to read through to understand some of the signs, and also see where they can get support services if their child already is using. Perhaps they already need to get them into some sort of recovery or rehab center.
Wow.
And then the Parent Support Network is part of this kind of national consortium of parents who are bereaved parents who, again, are looking for maybe just common ground, maybe someone who has that shared experience with them. It may be a cup of coffee with another parent, or it might be joining our speakers bureau and becoming a speaker in their hometown and speaking to kids and also to parents about substance use.
We had years ago, I don't know where these moms are, we had a group of 4 moms who had either lost a child or had some experience with their children and their drug use. And they used to go around and speak to parents. And it was so powerful. So powerful. We need to check in with those moms.
Well, it's, to use your term, overdose is totally preventable.
Mhm.
It's that is one thing that is totally preventable. And, in my generation growing up with the First Lady Nancy Reagan slogan of just say no works if you've never started.
Right.
But once you've started drugs, just say no doesn't work. And
Right.
you've really got to capture those kids' attention with data, with facts, with photos, with stories of other kids so they understand that it's not just a vape, that you're starting something that you may never be able to undo down the road and do permanent damage or ultimately die from it.
Mhm. Would you mind sharing some of the red flag early signs to parents who may either be looking for them or
Sure,
in denial?
sure.
Yeah.
And I think it's easy as parents, once the hormones kick in with your kid, we were like, it's the hormones. They're no, you do.
Yeah,
I mean,
no.
my parents did it with me, and thankfully I wasn't using drugs, but it's, oh, it's just the hormones are kicking in. They're, you blame it on everything. You don't want to believe that your child could be doing drugs, but kind of as what I referenced before is, are there severe mood swings with your child? It doesn't necessarily mean it's hormones. Are they coming home from school and going straight to their room and becoming more withdrawn and not speaking to you? Are they not participating in family activities? If it's time to go to church on Sunday or go to the beach, are they saying, no, I'd rather stay home? Are they hanging out with kids you don't know? And you don't know their parents and you've never seen these kids before? Is there drastic weight loss? Is there drastic weight gain? And as simple as this may seem, smells, odors. If your kids are consuming, it's not just the smell of marijuana. If they're consuming other prescription drugs, there may be smells that you smell from your child that you've never noticed before. Pay attention to that. And as I know parents don't like to do this, that is your home and that is your child. You go through their drawers, you go through their room, you go through their backpack, you go through their pockets. You have every right to do that, because what you don't want to do is wake up one morning with a phone call from the police and go, why didn't I check my son's backpack?
Mhm.
Right. Right.
In any programs that we offer for parents for early warning signs, we always stress that these are great conversation starters too.
Mhm.
Like, you don't have to jump in both feet accusing your kid of using substances, but it's a great place to start asking questions and learn more about your kid. Something is troubling your kid, whether they're using substance abuse or not. If they are withdrawing and there's something
Right,
bothering them, so
right.
a great place to start with what's going on in your life.
And this may be considered a drastic measure, but we actually have some parents who have lost a child who now, with the rest of their children, they drug test them once a month.
Wow.
And again, that may seem drastic and that may seem severe, but one of this woman said her son is so thankful that he does that, because now he has an out with peer pressure. Because now when his friends want to just smoke pot, he goes, my mom drug tests me once a month. I can't because if I get drug tested and test positive, I lose my car, I lose my phone, I can't play football anymore. And I know that seems drastic to parents, but that's something you may want to consider is random drug testing your kids, because it gives them that out for peer pressure of saying, I can't do drugs.
I think sounds drastic at first, but then when you realize,
You've saved your child's life.
or this person just lost a child, a person
Yeah.
who's doing this just
Right.
lost a child, I don't think I'd stray too far away from that. So
Yeah.
I'd be right there too. What are some of the biggest challenges that Victoria's Voice faces with families and communities?
Sure. More than anything, it's time.
Mm.
Most families, both parents are working, and when they're not working, they're taking kids to soccer or after school activities. And we're not doing that. They're trying to, grocery shop or clean the house or fix the yard. It's just time. We try to do in many communities after hours events where we have parents come out and do a vital signs event. We'll do it at a community center or a church. We've even had NFL players come out and be host of these programs. But the biggest challenge is just time, is parents trying to find the time to do it. And then the second challenge, which is the challenge that David and Jackie say is they blame themselves, is so many parents think, not my child.
Mm.
It's just not my child. It's someone else's kid. And it is your child.
Mhm.
And so those are our two biggest challenges, is time and then denial.
And so stigma also, I'm sure, plays a role.
Right.
Do you have any ways that at Victoria's Voice that you're working against stigma or have.
You know,
strategy.
stigma it's just like everything else. It's personal. It's really a personal perception. What I think, and not because we've helped with this, but what I think is helping stigma and making people talk about it more is the rise in fentanyl poisonings. Because you hear the term poisoning being used more and more often versus overdose. And the difference in that is a child tries pot for the first time, a 12-year-old kid. This happened in the state of Florida, and it was laced with fentanyl, and he died. The child didn't overdose. He didn't consume so much marijuana that it killed him. The child was poisoned by fentanyl. And that's waking parents up again, realizing my child's not a drug addict. My child may experiment for the first time and die. I need to pay attention. I need to carry naloxone. I need to overcome this stigma. I think the stigma, no matter how much we try, is always going to be there, just like it is with mental health, just like it is with alcohol use. But I think the more we talk about it and the more all of us try to make it mainstream, we can make these overdose deaths and substance addiction totally preventable.
Now, for our listeners, how can they help? Listeners hearing you today and wanting to get involved, how can they help with some of the hurdles that Victoria's Voice faces?
I think they start in their own home. They start in their own community. You know, have a conversation with your kid tonight. Say, I listened to this podcast and, you know, I never thought that it could be my own child. And I'm not comfortable talking to you about this. You know, kids get mad or they get mad at their mom and dad, and parents want to be friends with their kids. And I think starting your own home and have a conversation with your kid. If you're a grandparent, you're still an influential person in that child's life. You know, I'm an aunt. I've got tons of nieces and nephews. You don't have to be a parent to start conversations with kids. If you're a coach, you may be more influential in that child's life than their parents are. They may feel more comfortable talking to you. Start having conversations with those kids on the baseball team or on your swim team. A scouting leader, a leader, a mentor at a Boys and Girls Club. You're an influential person in that child's life. Just start having conversations.
I don't think people really think about it that way.
Yeah.
No, I am hearing that more and more, though, in even different aspects of the work we do. People talking about telling your story. Your story is important. Tell your story. So, do you deal with social media pressures at all?
Of course.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And you know, we struggle with that because social media is one of the greatest ways to get our message out to a broad audience at an affordable cost. But the flip side of that is we keep telling kids, get off your phones. You know, so it's a double-edged sword. So we really focus a lot of our audience, quite frankly, through Instagram on parents, is really just trying to reach parents with messaging and not focusing as much on kids. But of course, social media is changed the fabric of our country. It's changed how people communicate. It's changed what they think. As positive as it can be in finding that cousin you haven't spoken to in 10 years, it's created political divide with people, and people believe one thing or another. And so it is the 800-pound gorilla we all want to conquer that we love to hate. But we try to utilize social media in the most positive way we can to really just communicate with parents.
Wow. Now, we mentioned fentanyl a little earlier. How do you help educate parents and youth about the danger of fentanyl?
It's you know, fentanyl is a prescription drug. I mean, it's used as a painkiller in healthcare in this country. Part of what we do is we have a program called Fentanyl Fake and Fatal, of people understanding that now 70% of the drugs that are on the streets have some level of fentanyl in them. So there's a 70% chance if you try illicit drugs, you're going to die. And so it's really hitting them over the head with our speakers bureau of, because most of the parents that were bereaved parents over the course of the last 2 years were working with their kids have died from fentanyl poisoning. These kids haven't been pervasive, consistent substance users. It's a first-time kid trying, and these parents will never forgive themselves. It's horrible. So it's really beating kids over the head with statistics of everything is laced with fentanyl now, and there's a 70% chance the first time you try drugs, you're going to die.
That's an eye opener.
Yes.
Jeez.
Yep. I did not hear those specific stats, but I was at an opioid summit yesterday, and that was kind of the message across the board too about adults too. Most of the deaths that have occurred are from non-substance misuse, non-substance abusers.
They're not addicts. They're not using these on a daily basis. For anyone listening, I can tell you that one of the best resources out there is the DEA website.
Mm,
While the Drug Enforcement Agency is a law enforcement agency, and their job is to stop the bad guys, their prevention resources are second to none. Their One Pill Can Kill campaign is fantastic, and we piggyback on that with a lot of our education through kids. But the resources that they have for parents and for just the general public are absolutely exceptional. They're the best out there. And it's, your taxpayer money paid for this. So use these resources. They're going to help you a lot. A lot of what we have in the back of our diary and a lot of our talking points for our parents who are speaking come from the DEA.
mhm. Do you have any stories like from families that you have helped that you could share with us?
We do. We have so much of it comes from the diary. There's a mom in Oklahoma City who heard about our program actually through Jackie Siegel, who's the co-founder, who's Victoria's mother, has some semblance of a celebrity status through the Queen of Versailles a documentary that was done on her and the family that was released in 2012. And she saw through that documentary the story about Victoria and heard about the diary and was at one of the resorts in Branson, Missouri, and bought the diary because she had seen the Queen of Versailles movie and read it. And she read through there and started seeing some of the signs that her daughter had, that Victoria had, and started approaching her daughter. And her daughter was using drugs, prescription drugs, and got her daughter into rehab and saved her daughter's life from that. And so we hear story after story, specifically of families who have read this diary and how meaningful it is to them, and how it's really opened their eyes.
Mm. Yeah. What victories are you most proud of, and how have they shaped the future of Victoria's Voice?
I think the sheer reach of how many we've reached, over 1 million kids and parents this past January was our first major milestone. And I know it's easy to talk about impact activity, but really that's significant impact. We also have seen the growth in naloxone being carried with first responders and with just the general public nationwide over the course of the last 3 years. But we've also seen as drug overdose deaths have gone down in this country over the last year. There was an article that was in the New York Times that's been shared throughout our circle of influence that we're starting to see people paying attention and really understanding the signs. And we're starting to see some of the overdose death number go down. We know they're never going to go away, but to the extent that we can continue to see a decrease, we feel like that's a victory.
That's true. Very true.
If there's a parent listening right now and suspects their child of substance use, what would you suggest they do immediately?
The first action a parent should do is sit down and have an honest conversation with their child. I don't care how uncomfortable it is. I don't care if your child yells at you. I don't care if your child tells you they hate you. You'd rather have your child hate you and be alive than love you and be dead. So the first thing you need to do is sit down and have a very honest conversation with them. To prepare for that talk, know the facts about the substance that you think that they're using. Again, go to the DEA website. When having that conversation, do so in a supportive, a non-accusatory, a non-judgmental manner. Stay as calm as you can, reassure your child that you love them, and make those communication lines open. And we're not going to punish you for it, but we can't help you if we don't know what's going on in your life. And then next, seek help from professionals, the primary care physician or a mental health professional who specializes in adolescent substance use. If you want to drug test your kid, maybe that's the time to do it if you really suspect something's going on. And then there's support systems with your school counselors, family therapist, and just general support groups for parents of kids who are struggling with substance use. And I go back to our diary. Our diary is a powerful resource for parents, and our website is a great resource too.
Now, what's next for Victoria's Voice? Any new initiatives or any?
We have really tried, call about staying in our lane. We've really focused on middle school and high school students because that's where we know the biggest need is and when kids are going to start using them. But we're getting a lot of requests from college campuses. And actually fraternity and sorority, Panhellenic directors asking us to potentially come in. And for us, You know, they're 18 years old, they're adults. They don't have to listen to us. They can do what they want, but their brain still isn't fully developed. And so we're looking at partnering with some other organizations. We don't know that we're best in class in college curriculum and college prevention, but we're probably going to go ahead and start pursuing that area this year just because we're getting so many requests for it.
So important.
It is.
I mean, they are fresh out of high school.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, 18 might be an adult, but to me, you're still a teenager and you're still a child. So, you know, you legally can't buy alcohol. So we think we may start pursuing some college programs.
So if there are parents listening that want to get involved, support your mission, what are the best ways for them to follow up?
We would love, there's never enough shortage of speakers, and you don't have to be a bereaved parent to participate in our speakers program. So if you're interested and you have some time to volunteer and want to go speak to high school kids, PTAs, Rotary groups, you may have a personal experience. It might not be a child, but you may have lost a sibling to substance use, you know, in your teenage years. And there are things you wish you had said or done as a teenager to help prevent your brother or sister from dying. We welcome any members, any parents, any community members in our Speakers Bureau. And the other is carry naloxone. You know, if you don't, I can't encourage you enough. There's no stigma associated with it. There shouldn't be stigma associated with it. Always carry naloxone. You carry Band-Aids, like I said, you have a fire extinguisher, carry naloxone. And the third thing is if you have questions, go to our website. It's really informative. You know, email us through our info app. We'll ship you a copy of our diary for free. And again, you don't have to be a parent. You can be a grandparent, a teacher, a counselor, a coach, an aunt like me, an uncle who just has an influence in kids' lives, and you care about them. We highly encourage you to read the diary and share it.
And for our listeners, can you just provide that website address?
It's victoriasvoice.org, just like it sounds, victoriasvoice.org.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for all this information. It was very nice to meet you.
Oh, nice to meet you all as well. Thanks for what you do with Totally Preventable.
Our pleasure. You take care now. Have a great rest of the day.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you.